A whole bunch of baseball moves this week on the Baseball Talk Radio Show with Rich and Gary. And hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're talking all about our favorite sport, and I'm guessing it's probably yours too, and that, of course, baseball. Hello, Gary.
Hey, Rich, how are you? Big week just got done in the world of baseball. Of course, the winter meetings out in, just down in Washington, D.C., and exciting stuff coming out of there, Rich, and I know we're going to talk about that, and we got some Hall of Fame guys. We got some trades to talk about. We got some signings. It's a full packed show tonight.
Yes, it will be a great show, and that hot stove is just boiling over. As you said, the winter meeting's just wrapping up in a place called National Harbor, Maryland. Now, that's very interesting. It's a suburb of Washington, D.C., about 15, 20 minutes to the south of D.C. if you're driving, across the river from Alexandria, Virginia. But, you know, when you go look up directions for Washington, D.C. or hotel rooms and all, do you know they actually include National Harbor, Maryland as well? Sort of like, I would say, sort of like an Atlantic City of Maryland down there. It's pretty interesting.
I guess it's so close, and it's probably the biggest place that they put it looked like a huge resort type of place, not just a hotel. So I guess they try to hook you all in so you think it's all in the same area, and it virtually is. I mean, Alexandria, Virginia is just over that bridge from Washington, D.C., so it's all the same area anyway.
Yes, it is. And the winter meetings wrapped up there. And just as the winter meetings wrapped up in National Harbor, MGM Grand Casino opened a casino there in National Harbor. So a lot of great things happening down there, and a lot of great baseball moves to talk about on this show. And a lot of teams really bolstered their teams up over this winter meetings holiday session here.
Yeah, a lot of guys changed hands or hats, we should say. Hats and jerseys got changed this week. And as I said, we got a couple of new members of the Hall of Fame. John Schuerholz and Bud Selig were elected in via the Today's Game Era Committee. Of course, we'll get the results. I guess in January we normally get the results for the players that are going to go in, but they did announce some of the players, and I think we touched on that a little bit last week, some of the guys we thought were going to go in. And Claire Smith, baseball writer, became the first female recipient of the J.G. Taylor Spink Award from the Baseball Writers Association of America on Tuesday, and she received a standing ovation by the group of writers that had just elected her, and had a nice gesture when she was up in the front of the room accepting her award. She called up all of the other female sports writers that were in the room, baseball writers, and had them stand with her, and that was a pretty nice gesture on her part. She'll be honored during the Hall of Fame induction weekend in Cooperstown. She is slated to give her acceptance speech on July 29th at Doubleday Field, along with whoever is accepting the award for the Fort C. Frick Award, because that went to the late Bill King, who was an announcer for the Oakland Athletics. He was the winner for the Fort C. Frick Award for excellence in baseball broadcasting, and I guess he'll have a family member there to accept for him in his honor, and that will all be on the 29th at Doubleday Field, and I believe the 30th is when the other inductions take place. In I don't know what the title of the area that they do it at, but It's all happening in July up in Cooperstown every year.
Yes, indeed. And we were talking a little bit before the show. We're both overdue on a visit to Cooperstown. Definitely a must do if you're a baseball fan, and allow more than one day for it. I was talking with Gary before the show, and I was reminiscing on some of my visits there. I've been there twice, but each time it was for the one afternoon, and it's just so much to take in. You almost need 2 days to do it if you're going to do it right, because there's so much to see and digest. It's such a whirlwind visit if you try to do it in just one day. But yeah, a whole lot of things to do in and around the Cooperstown area. Of course, baseball fields, always something going on, especially in the springtime when it starts getting a little warmer. You can see some baseball being played. Always a fun time. And Gary, I think we should do ourselves a favor and try to get somebody from the Hall of Fame on our show. Maybe they'll be able to give us a good rundown on what's available there in the Hall of Fame. And it seems to be getting bigger and better every year. It seems like they're adding on different wings and just making a whole day or two to explore that area anymore.
Yeah, it certainly, and the town itself has really grown. Rich, I went when I was a kid a number of years ago, and there really didn't seem like there was a lot to do, but now there's just so much more. It seems the Cooperstown Bat Company's open, and you can go on a tour there, and there's breweries, and I think there's wineries in the area, and just there's the Farmers Museum and another museum nearby. It's just a lot to do there, really. So, great idea. Give yourself a couple of days to do the hall, and maybe make a week out of it and see the whole area, because it's really a beautiful country up around that area there. And I think that's the leather stocking region, they call it. And really beautiful stuff. And it's reminiscent, or it's where I think James Fenimore Cooper was around from, and wrote some of those great novels. So, do yourself a favor and take the time off if you can. Go up there. I wouldn't advise going in the summer necessarily, because that's the real busy time. Unless you can deal with crowds and deal with walking. Us old guys have little problems with that. So we prefer to go in off season to crowded places, but it is a great place to go to.
Yes, indeed. And of course, we'll be talking and hearing about a whole lot more with the Baseball Hall of Fame elections and things like that. And another good thing I like about the Hall of Fame is they seem to change up every year or two or three as far as how they admit their members. They're constantly evolving along with the times, electing new committees to put some new faces into the Hall of Fame. They seem to understand that as time moves on, so does the game of baseball, and they even progress along as well. They don't stay very stagnant for too long over there.
Yeah, I don't think they can, Rich. I think they've got to be able to progress in the times and to stay viable, And they even offer now. They have a mobile version, I believe, that they'll go to some towns with some artifacts from the hall, and because it is, if you're in the Midwest, it's a good trip to get there. I mean, it's tough even for us to get there. It's a small town. It's not in a major thoroughfare, and it is, I mean, there's some hotels, but it's difficult. They book up a lot in the summer, so it's great for the people. It's their boomtown, the owners of these motels and resorts and things. But really, as you say, they're staying with the times. They're keep trying to keep people interested in the game with this new mobile thing that they have to display or whatever they call it, that goes around the country and stuff, and shows a lot of these artifacts from the hall. And I can remember some amazing stuff that you see when you're there. You just again, it was a long, long time ago that I went, but it was just awe inspiring.
Yes, indeed. And they used to have a podcast as well. It was called Cooperstown Conversations, and just in the last year and a half to two, I think ago, they packed that in for some reason. But I used to really look forward to that. They produced a nice product once a month from the Hall of Fame, but for some reason they folded that podcast. But yeah, we appreciate what they put out there, and we encourage our listeners out there to go check it out, the Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, Gary, some guys that might be considered for the Baseball Hall of Fame in the future made some big moves in the offseason. I would say the Boston Red Sox probably jumped up the most as a team that was probably in the middle of the pack to do something well in 2017, to maybe right underneath the Cubs when they acquired Chris Sale and what has to be one of the biggest acquisitions of the offseason.
Certainly is, Rich. And the Red Sox had quite a day there. They acquired Sale. They signed Mitch Moreland to fill a gap that they had at first base, and also added a relief pitcher, making a trade with Milwaukee and bringing in Tyler Thornburg. I think his name is that. So they really did a good job there, and they really shot their stock up, Rich. As you said, they really made themselves one of the favorites now, if not the favorite in the American League East, at least, and potentially in the American League. And I'd have to say that they're, in my opinion, a big winner of the week, along with, and we're not sure yet, but I mean, just the way they transformed themselves, you'd have to say that Chicago has to be up there. Time will tell on that, but they picked up a lot of prospects, got rid of some contracts and some other players, and picked up some really, really good top flight prospects. They traded Adam Eaton to the Nationals and got three of their top prospects. I mean, I think two of the guys, it were three pitchers they got. Two of them were one and the number one prospect and the number three prospect. And I got to tell you, this was kind of a head scratcher, but they made the deal, and I think Chicago robbed them. I don't understand Washington giving up that much for Adam Eaton. Nice player, but wow, I mean, that was a lot to give up to get Adam Eaton, and yet that they claim they're happy. I think the odd part about the whole thing, Rich, that I thought was the whole press conference when the general manager of Washington was talking about the deal. He kept bringing up the point that, he's under control for 5 years, 3 years or 5 years, I forget which. And that was what he gets on base and he's under control. That seemed to be more important to him than, the guy hit 260 or 280 or 300, and he's under control for 5 years. I thought that it struck me as very odd. I don't know if anybody else out there, if that struck them as well, but I just thought that was pretty odd.
Yeah, very odd sounding there, and maybe he didn't mean to stress it that much, but that's the way it came out. But the Nationals really picked up some steam. They sailed right underneath the Boston Red Sox with their acquisitions. They needed that extra offense to help push some of that late stretch run that they've been lacking in the last few years. And they have the team, but they just can't get over the hump. So maybe they feel that acquisition will help them get there, give them a little more strength out there in the outfield. And their pitching is already there, so they have 2/3 of it already sewed up almost. Another move, the Yankees made some big moves. Not sure if maybe the moves will make them into the World Series for 2017. But it seems like Boston had to respond to every move that the Yankees made, and they both really went out there and did some dealing.
Well, the Yankees added Matt Holliday, of course, from St. Louis. They needed a DH and a right-handed bat, and they're going to use him at first and then the outfield as well as a DH. Yankees are really going for youth movement now, Rich. So it is kind of another scratching. Why would they have signed him? But you need some veteran leadership. He'll provide that. He is an opposite field hitter with power and with a short right field fence. That'll be nice. And it's a 1-year deal. I think they also signed Aroldis Chapman back to a 5-year deal. I think 86 million, something in that area. Little confusion in New York here on that deal. In a way, it's a good deal. People say, well, why did they trade him and then they signed him back? Well, look at it this way. They got some prospects. They got the Castro from the Cubs, and now they got him back just for money. So in that matter, it's not a bad deal, but it's just strange. 5 years. They don't expect to be good for another 2 or 3. And the question is, he's going to be getting older in 3 years. Is he still going to be throwing 102 miles an hour? So it's a risky proposition with any pitcher, especially a relief pitcher, and especially one that throws that hard, because that's his calling card. And but we'll see how they wanted him back. They got him back. They kept him away from Boston, even though Boston picked up their relief pitcher in Thornburg. And so the Cubs needed a closer, and they went out and traded for Wade Davis. They got Jorge Soler. They traded him to the Kansas City for Wade Davis. So they got their closer back. So it was a lot of musical chairs. The Giants signed Mark Melancon to a 4-year, $62 million deal. So they've got a closer now. Steve Pearce got signed by the Blue Jays. So what that has done is filled some slots, and there's a lot of guys out there still that people thought were going to go quick, but they may have overestimated the market and wanted too much money. And I'm talking about Edward Encarnacion, and Mark Trumbo is still out there, and Jose Bautista, who I think is asking way too much money. And Encarnacion turned down an offer from the Blue Jays for $80 million for 4 years. I think he should have taken it now. So there's still a lot of excitement out there, Rich, to see what moves are going to be made now and who's going to blink first and sign some of these guys.
And as you said, Chapman moves on from a World Series winning team to the Yankees. Question mark. I don't know if I was Chapman, I wouldn't have maybe minded hanging around Chicago for a year or 2 more. It seems like they have everything going for them there in Cubby land, but I guess money wins out and contracts win out, and he packed up and left and went back to New York. But, if I'm somebody like that, I'm wanting to stay a part of a World Series championship team for a little bit, but I guess everybody has their own agenda.
Yeah, I don't think they had the money or the inclination. I really don't think they wanted to sign him more than probably a 1-year deal. And, he went where the money was. I mean, we as National East guys, I'm just glad that the Nationals didn't get him.
Yeah, that's for sure. That'd be pretty interesting if they did. But as you said, yeah, Mark Melancon ends up in San Francisco, leaves the Washington Nationals, and they're going to miss him a little bit for sure. He was a great reliever for the Nationals, but now he's moving over to San Francisco. Going to be very happy there. And I got a little sound bite here that hopefully I can get to play in a second or two. But Melanson was so well speaking of the Giants management, and they were speaking so well of him. They thought it was a perfect fit for him. Keeps himself in great shape, things like that. And here's a little commentary here by I think Bruce Bochy on how he likes to have Melanson on the team.
Be able to fill such a need, I couldn't be more thrilled, and I can tell you the team feels the same. They're very excited. It's just going to allow us, to put guys, I think, more in more distinct roles, and he just made the staff so much better. Trust me, and we couldn't be more excited to have you, Mark, and Mary Catherine. Welcome to San Francisco, his wife, and we're very, very excited to have you.
Well, that's Bruce Bochy there with a little commentary on his new closer. And tonight, Gary, there was a interesting tweet sent out by the San Francisco Giants. I saw it just before we doing the podcast. 17% off for 2017 until midnight out there in San Francisco in celebration of their new closer. And they had a nice graphic that they released with that tweet, but pretty interesting stuff there. I'd just love to see those promotions gathered around their new players and building a little excitement out there in the city by the bay.
Well, they needed a closer. They needed one badly. And I bet you Madison Bumgarner is pretty happy. He won't have to be pitching 9, 10, 11 innings anymore and coming in out of relief. So he'll be very happy, along with the rest of the pitching staff.
Yes, indeed. Well, you were a little underwhelmed at some of the moves of the hot stove season for 2016. And as you mentioned, there's a few players still available for some teams out there that are shopping. Some under the radar players even available out there. So maybe this hot stove season isn't truly done yet. Most of the time you're thinking, hey, it's December 9th. Players are really starting to think about spring, even though opening day is 115 days away as we're doing the podcast. But just, right after Christmas, things seem to accelerate. And then all of a sudden you're talking about spring training right around the corner. So a lot of these teams only have a few more weeks to actually make a deal, get these players on the squads, and fill out their teams. So as you said, Gary, a few guys left, some good prospects, some good well-seasoned veterans, DHs. Ryan Howard, for instance, haven't heard him go anywhere. I kind of thought we'd maybe see him sign somewhere. Some team may need his services, but and another few handful of DHs seem like they're plentiful supply this year.
Rich, I wonder if the CBA and the negotiating's true kind of threw everybody off a tick. Maybe they were planning both ways. If there weren't meetings, if there were meetings, and and maybe it just threw their timing off, because it just seemed very strange that I really thought now there was a lot of dealing and stuff going on, but I really thought the dam was going to burst. I thought we were going to have rapid fire things, every day. And it just seemed it was a couple of days. And then the last day or so, really nothing happened too much. And it just seemed to drag at points in time. And I thought it was really going to be just a rapid fire thing with guys moving like crazy. I don't know if you remember, I think it was 2-3 years ago. I think it was in San Diego, and that was a wild one. That was the year that the Dodgers were trading people, and San Diego was trading. I mean, there were people going all over the place from Miami, and this year it just seemed a little bit tamer. It didn't seem as hectic, and I just wonder if the CBA. Maybe there was a big relief getting that settled, and people were not, in a rush. I think this became as one of the usual ones where there was a lot of groundwork laid down, and we'll see what happens from here on in. But man, if I was some of them free agents, I gotta be. I mean, if you were Edwin Encarnacion, you had to believe that everybody wanted you, and now he's got to be shaking his head and saying, I didn't even get an offer yet. I mean, and it's one of those things. You get 4 years they offered him for $80 million, and he turned it down. Either to me, either his agent's not valuing the market right, or everybody overestimated the market. I don't know what it is, but boy, sometimes you just got to jump on that. And if somebody else gets 100, God bless them.
That's for sure. And as you said, there's an overstock of guys that could be good at the DH role. So maybe that's keeping some teams away, as you said. And, the uncertainty of would there be a season in 2017 as we came up to that CBA closing day there, that they had to either make the deal or things were going to be done. A lot of people didn't think a deal was going to be made. So, yeah, maybe as you said, the teams were planning on a couple of months down the road, and all of a sudden it was baseball on, and there the mini winter meetings were being held. So very interesting times there in this off season. Plenty of players left to go around, and out in St. Louis, Dexter Fowler finally found a home. The former World Series champion Cubs player out there in center field will be the St. Louis Cardinals center fielder for the foreseeable future. He signed a 5-year deal, $82.5 million. And I was interested to see where Fowler would end up, and very surprised that the Cardinals all of a sudden emerged out of not doing too much lately in the past year or two, and they went out and paid a big name free agent.
Yeah, well, they lost Haywood last year and he went to the Cubs, so maybe this is a bit of a payback. Now they took Fowler from the Cubs, so who knows? But he had a great year and a good playoffs and everything, so he's going to go to the Cardinals, and we'll see what happens with him next year.
Yeah, they got a better deal than the Cubs did on their end.
Yeah. And if you notice, Rich, it's all been around that 4 or 5 year, $80 million mark. Not a lot of over 100. Cespedes went to the Mets. But the Mets really needed him. It was kind of a different situation. They're on the verge, and they really needed that bat. So they really overpaid probably for him just a little bit. And some of these teams may not be as close or as close, but not willing to pay as much, and may have other pieces. But the Mets needed that bat, and that's why they went out and they got Cespedes. And Cespedes wanted to stay in New York. So, and that's something you don't always hear. People, it's not like it used to be. They're not dying to come to the Yankees or the Mets anymore and play in New York City. So he definitely liked it here. He definitely has performed here, and that's why he got such a large contract from the Mets. But again, Encarnacion is still available. Trumbo, they might be better off taking a 1 year. Though at Encarnacion's age, it's it's not that easy then that you get the big contract. But, a guy like Trumbo might be better off taking a 1 year, $15 million contract or something. Should have took the qualifying offer and, go out, have another big year, and then hope that somebody signs you.
That's for sure. Well, a whole lot of signings to be remaining. I'm sure we'll be talking about that on a next couple shows there as we roll along right through December here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We want to thank you for listening to this show and encourage you to subscribe on iTunes. If you have the iTunes Music Store on your phone or your tablet, you can easily just find our podcast there and hit subscribe, and you'll get every one of our shows delivered right over to your device. We're also on Stitcher Radio. Want to check us out there. And we're streaming this show live on baseballtalkradio.com, going around the world, talking all about baseball. And we encourage you to listen there as well. It's baseballtalkradio.com. Only about 35 shows there. I don't think you can listen to all those shows in one day, Gary.
No, I don't think so. It's going to take you quite some time, but there's a little bit of everything there. Cover most of the teams and Japanese baseball, fantasy baseball. There's even a podcast for groundskeepers, all there at baseballtalkradio.com, the home of great baseball talk shows. And go check it out. It's a great place. And if you'd like to help us out a little bit, you can go to patreon.com, become a sponsor of the show. Help us out. $2 a month, $1 a month, anything you can give it all would be gratefully appreciated, and help us do more of this kind of thing, the video, and expand our capabilities, and maybe some on the road surprises in the summertime. So that's patreon.com/baseball talk, and give whatever you can. We'd greatly appreciate it. And this is the time of the year the spirit of giving is strong with everyone. So please go and help us out.
Well said. And if you can't remember the link there, go to our website, mlbthisweek.com. You can see our video version of the show, and also check out the Patreon link there. You go right over there. You can subscribe with your PayPal or credit card a month, per month, $1 or $2. And we also have some items that we're giving away to our subscribers as well that want to patronize our podcast. So we appreciate that. And plenty of baseball talk to be talked about here on the show in future editions. As Gary just said, we're talking with some authors, going to have them up on some future shows, great baseball books that they have coming out here over the winter to help you last till baseball season starts again. And it's always funny, Gary, at the end of the season of World Series, you kind of think you can't last till spring again. And it is a void in your life. You don't have that nightly watching of baseball and the America's pastime, so to speak. And, reading a book about baseball or studying about it, listen to a podcast, just another way of connecting yourself with the game. So you can still find great things to do here in the off season. And we hope you continue to check out this podcast.
And, Rich, I noticed since I've been podcasting that the off season seems to go by quicker, and I think it's because we're looking at almost in a weekly group and trying to figure out, who can we have on here and who can we try to line up here and there. And oh my God, it's January, and then oh gosh, it's February now. We're talking about spring training already, and both you and I do our own separate shows. You do the Philly Talk Show, and I do Mets Musings, and trying to line up guests for this show and line up guests for that show. It seems to really make it go quicker because you have all of these plans at the end of the season. Oh, I want to get this guy on, I want to get that guy on, and it all takes time, and before you know it, well, why do I want to have that guy on now? Because now they're in camp. Now I got to get people that are attached to the camp, So it is a fascinating thing, but we're going to try to go as many weeks as we can and bring you some kind of baseball talk. And if it's not anything new, then we'll hopefully have an author on. It's got, as you said, Rich, it's got a great book coming out or out already. That we can talk to about, and hopefully get you to go out and buy it so they'll come back on again when they write their next book, maybe. We've already had Mark Littell on, author, former Major League pitcher, author of and On the Eighth Day God Created Baseball. Great book. Check it out for the holidays. and Ed Kasputis, the baseball PhD guy, and he's got a great podcast as well. So we're trying to bring a different circle of people into the show.
Yes, indeed. So, well, thank you for listening to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. And, I couldn't help but before we close down this edition, Gary, when I heard Chris Sale was going to the Red Sox, I wonder if everybody started hiding their collars in Boston. He goes around with scissors and does some nasty things with collars. So, maybe
Well,
there'll be a new fashion there in Boston.
no retro uniforms there. I hope.
Don't give the man collars and nobody gets hurt over there.
And no scissors. Keep them away from him.
Well, thanks again for listening to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We'll be talking to you next week for some more great baseball talk, everyone.